Hello, America, and hello, nuclear aficionados around the world. Welcome to Nuclear.com Daily. This is Thursday, December 19th, 2013. I'm Steve Schulin of Nuclear.com, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be part of your day. Those of you listening in later via podcast or after watching the YouTube video, please know that you're welcome, wanted, and encouraged to come join in live every Monday through Friday, starting at 12:05 p.m. Eastern Time, except today. I'm doing the show a couple hours early. Got something else going on at noontime today. Um, anyway, you can join in just like joining into a conference call. And here's the phone number and call ID 724-444-7444. You'll be asked for that call ID 95348#. Come one, come all of goodwill to Nuclear.com Daily. Let's take a look at some of the headlines today. Iran to return to the atomic talks today, according to Fars news agency, the Iranian state news propaganda group. Isn't that nice that the 6-month deal, already about a month after being agreed to, still hadn't gotten the clock ticking yet on when the 6 months start. Anybody who thinks that Iran is doing more than playing for time, not to mention taking the $25 billion worth of expected benefits, I question your judgment. Barack Obama says there's a 50-50 chance. Well, I interpret that as saying we don't have a clue what we're doing, but anything's better than war. Ladies and gentlemen, anything is not better than war. I'm sorry. We found out that appeasing tyrants is a terrible way to make things worse. And that, my friends, is what the Obama administration is committed to do. They say it's unacceptable for Iran to become a nuclear weapon state. Empty. It sounds like empty words to me. May God help us with the type of leadership that we have elected in the White House, in the U.S. Senate, in the U.S. House of Representatives. They do not have my best interests at heart. They do not have my children's best interests at heart. They don't have the best interests of my grandchildren, if I'm so blessed, at heart. And they sure don't have your interest at heart either. Stand up. Stop voting for these candidates who don't give a hoot about the Constitution, who don't give a hoot about the purposes expressed in that Constitution, the reason why we formed this government. The idea, I hear all these people praising Ben Bernanke as he steps down for avoiding another Great Depression. I'm sorry, I do not praise this awful, this easy out, this easy short-term, but long-term, very counterproductive approach of printing money, devaluing our currency. That's what they're doing. They're devaluing our currency. They're making every dollar worth less because they're printing more. I don't know if any of y'all have clicked on there's a viral advertising video by Stansberry Research, Paul Stansberry. It's out. It's been out for several months now. He's selling subscriptions to his newsletter. But he's making a very good point about history and fundamental laws of economics that we can we can bet on, and one of them is if you try to get out of your debt problems by going into more debt, your history does not give any hope that you will succeed. As a matter of fact, everybody who's tried it has failed spectacularly. Here in the United States, we have especially lot to lose. We're kind of buffered from some of the effects of our economic mistakes because dollars are accepted or have been accepted for decades the world around. We're what's called the world's reserve currency. And Stansberry said, my conclusion is we will not be the world's reserve currency for much longer, and the change when it happens is going to be very rapid, and I suspect, he says, that the change will be much sooner than hardly anybody expects. And this is going to end up essentially shutting down our government, shutting down our banks, businesses will keep their doors closed. Our standard of living here in the United States will virtually overnight be slashed. He estimates 25%. And that might be optimistic in a number. Anyway, there are still things that we can do. I don't share his total pessimism. For example, I think that if we were to abolish the ability of the federal government to tax income, both individual and corporate, and return to a consumption tax, that the economic boom that would result, the incoming investment that would flow from foreign nations, could make our current economic disaster a memory quite quickly. And this is not a new idea for me. I think the ideal time would have been years ago. An opportune time would have been in the November 2008 bailout period. All you heard from the incumbents, the economic big shots back in that period was, oh, we have to do these bailouts. There's no other choice. Our economy will be wrecked. Now, the problem at that time was liquidity. It's referred to as a liquidity crisis. Investors were not willing to put money in the United States because of all the fears of the bad paper and the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and how the financial institutions were so tied up in that bad paper. Well, that would have been a great time to abolish the income tax. It would have been perfect for the economic necessity and avoiding this disastrous bailout policy, and it's been continued. They call it the stimulus, and they call it the quantitative easing. And what it all boils down to is we're printing trillions of bucks that we don't have. We're not cutting our spending, and we're still using the tax code to do all the kinds of social engineering that the tax code was introduced largely in anticipation of. I don't think it's any coincidence that the Communist Manifesto talks about how important it is to have the state take over education and have the state devise an income tax system. These are all things for globalists to use to gain political power. and we're losing our liberties. You know, that's the main reason I want to get rid of the doggone income tax is the liberty advantage. It's an onerous tax. It's a slave tax. Um, the idea that it's the government who gets to tell you how much of what you earn you can keep uh, is more fitting to slaves than it is to free people. I ran for Congress in 2007, and that was one of my clarion calls during that autumn of 2007 was you're being lied to when you're told that the only alternative is these bailouts. There is another way, a better way. And the only other person who was saying that was a man that I was a running mate for. He was the presidential candidate of America's party. And his name was Dr. Alan Keyes, a brilliant man, a lover of America's principles. He happens to be black, the descendant of slaves. His family has lived here for more than 300 years, enslaved for much of that period, right in Maryland. And anyway, it was a political treat for me because I had admired Dr. Keyes for so many years. I really first heard him during the Clinton administration, during the impeach Clinton movement. I met him through freerepublic.com. He was a speaker at a rally I went to. And he was a participant there on the internet discussion board. Anyway, when the 2000 elections came around, I supported him wholeheartedly. I thought he cleaned up in the debates. He represented my views by far better than any of the other candidates. I know he just didn't get the traction, but he ended up in 2007 signing a joint declaration with me, just him and me. He signed it for the same notary to be presidential and vice presidential running mates for the purposes of voters in the state of Virginia that year. His national running mate was Brian Rohrbaugh, another man I admired greatly. Brian's a pro-life activist. He wasn't active before his child was gunned down at Columbine High School on that awful day. But he thought long and hard about why are we having children killing children here in our society. And his conclusion was the root cause was we're a culture of death. And he traced it back to the first and most significant aspect of it, and that was saying that abortions were lawful. And so he's become one of the nation's great advocates for getting back to the Constitution's wording that no person shall be deprived of their life without due process. And he says, look, let's just make it clear that, as we all know, these unborn children are indeed persons. They're individual human beings. That is the definition of a person. Look it up. It has been. It has been as long as dictionaries have been printed here in the United States. So anyway, that was a treat to have this joint statement by me and Alan Keyes. And he was the only other one that said, look, the answer is not to be printing money, to be taking over businesses like we took over GM. They called it Government Motors for a while. And now they're lying about how good it was, as if the government got every penny back invested. Oh, mercy. We sure didn't get it back to the Treasury. Now, there might be individual politicians who've gotten it back and more from the union expenditures on their behalf, because we put unions in charge of General Motors. Oh, mercy. All right, other stories today. North Korea is unlikely to carry out a new nuclear test anytime soon, said a South Korean government minister, disputing a lawmaker's previous comments. We covered the previous comments here in recent days. The idea is that North Korea typically uses foreign mischief as a way to solidify their internal population against an external threat. And with the very public purge going on, with the new dear leader killing off others, instead of being number two in the government, now his uncle or whatever his relationship was with that fellow who was executed, now he's a traitorous, worse than a dog kind of guy. Anyway, but there's at least one South Korean government minister who says, I don't think they're going to blow up a nuclear weapon just because of this. Yeah. Next, alarming news. Nuclear weapons wise, Russia intends to revive a rail-based strategic missile capability in response to U.S. plans to develop a conventional long-range prompt strike capacity. More nuclear news. PennEnergy.com has a white paper available. Nuclear power generation at the Crossroads. It's by IDC Energy Insights. Examines the future of nuclear power across the globe, and it pays special attention to information technology and different IT processes and how they relate to security and efficiency in the nuclear licensing and building new nuclear kinds of businesses. Another nuclear story. AREVA awarded $73 million nuclear fuel contract by Dominion, and that is for new fuel at the Millstone plant. There's only one of the three Millstone units that's still operating, I believe. And finally, an energy piece. Energy Business Review has given their Energy Innovation Award for 2013, and the winner is a product called SolarWindow, which is a see-through technology capable of generating electricity on glass windows and also on flexible plastics. And my final story today is another energy piece, and it is about a deal that will probably continue to change the energy face of the geopolitical world. All eyes have been on the Middle East since the early 1970s and the Arab oil embargo. Well, fracking has at least given the promise of changing that and relegating the Middle East to a who cares kind of kind of a region. They're in trouble. Anyway, the deal between the United States and China um, is about developing fracking technology. And ladies and gentlemen, China is estimated to have the world's greatest frackable resources. The United States is at the top right now, and we will be pumping more oil than anybody else in the world this coming year. Is the projections that I've seen. We'll probably be out drilled, out produced by China of all people here in coming years, and we're going to help them use the technology that we've developed here. So thanks everybody. I very much appreciate your coming in. Oh my goodness, bless her heart. You know, I started here a couple hours early today, but Terry Holmes has gone through and downloaded the front pages and searched out the nuclear hits today. So let's take a look through them. This is the first I'm looking at them. San Luis Obispo Tribune out of California, hometown paper for Diablo Canyon, has a lead story. Let me see if I can see this on the screen here. Officials say 2013 was a safe year for Diablo. NRC meets with power plant officials in San Luis Obispo to talk inspection results. Seabrook plant draws criticism. This is on the front page of the Portsmouth Herald. Relicensing of nuclear facility is opposed at NRC hearing. And I did see a headline where a member or two of Congress has asked for more oversight on Seabrook. Iranian story out of the Gulf News. That's out of the United Arab Emirates. Riyadh warns West on Iran and Syria. It's in Saudi Arabia. Feels that their interests are not being secured. Another nuclear makes the front page twice here on the Japan Times today. Top story about politics in general. And the bottom story, new rules for spent fuel reprocessing are now in effect. And we talked a little bit about that yesterday. The government is tired of waiting for localities to take care of the reprocessing efforts, and so the national role in reprocessing will take hold. Something called the Epoch Times out of New York State has an interesting story about a diplomat's New York City arrest. Now, I read something about this last night in an Australian paper. Apparently, a diplomat from India was arrested because she had brought in a servant, a housekeeper, and on the paperwork, you know, you're not allowed as a diplomat to bring servants in the United States unless you promise to do certain things like pay them a living wage. And on her application to bring in the housekeeper, I think she said she was going to pay $4,500 a month, and she ended up paying about 10% of that amount. Anyway, so the diplomat was arrested by New York State or New York City police. She was taken to a jail for women, and she was strip searched, just like all incoming inmates our strip search. Anyway, in India, they really find it insulting that their white slavery kind of diplomat was treated indignantly. Strip searching, India in retaliation pulled security away from the U.S. embassy, and they were threatening to investigate U.S. diplomats on how much they pay their housekeepers in India. Anyway, so that makes the story. The nuclear link is, of course, U.S. and India are still trying to implement this nuclear deal. The U.S. made quite a few enemies by trying to say, look, India, we know that India went ahead and tested nuclear weapons when the world didn't want more nuclear weapons to be tested. But the fact is, we ought to encourage India's use of nuclear power, commercial nuclear power, and so we should not have these sanctions against providing nuclear technology to India. And of course, all the companies who want to sell nuclear technologies are quite happy with the prospect of the world's second largest population country is now an open market. So that's the backdrop of the nuclear relation to that diplomat story. The Tri-City Herald runs that story about the Millstone fuel contract by AREVA. AREVA notches $73 million contract for Millstone. Nice nativity scene there in Richland, Washington. You know, I was at a musical called the Carolina Opry here, right between Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach, over the weekend, and one of the skits was like a comedian, and he said, you know, they were thinking about having a nativity scene up in Washington D.C., but they had to cancel it because they could not find 3 wise men in the whole city. Let me tell you, the crowd loved that line. They were roaring in agreement. Some very unflattering pictures of Barack Obama in the Press Citizen out of Iowa City. I don't think they're in the tank for Obama. Jerusalem Post. Technical talks to restart with Iran in Vienna today. Western diplomat says no sanctions will be eased until a nuclear agreement is implemented. The Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, tells the Chinese Foreign Minister that the world must deprive Tehran of nuclear capabilities. More follow-up on the small modular reactor grant award, the Aiken Standard, hometown paper for Savannah River site. As their top story, Savannah River site misses out on award for small modular reactors project in Oregon. It gets $452 million in federal funds. Let's see, who was it that Savannah River had the deal to? The Oregon winner, of course, was New Scale Power. And let's see, they don't mention which company Savannah River was aligned with. Anyway, great news. Thank you very much, Gary, for getting these front pages to me before the show. And Appreciate it. Hope you have a great day, and I'll be back at regular time tomorrow. Those of you in the nuclear biz, make it another safe one, my friends. This is Steve Schulin signing off for Nuclear.com Daily.